This video is brought to you by Sailrite. Any avid sailor will tell you that using a Lee cloth makes a huge difference in getting a restful sleep in rough seas. The Salon, or main cabin, is often the best place to sleep in rough seas because it's located in the center of the boat. When you can't sleep on the low side, a Lee cloth is your friend, as it keeps you in your bunk. We will be using a Fifertex mesh fabric sold by Sailrite. Mesh fabrics like Fifertex, polyester bag mesh, or trampoline mesh soft white provide some airflow, which can help make a small bunk feel more open and cool. Making a Lee cloth is a very easy project for those who have not had much experience sewing. Let's get started and show you how to make one yourself. The first step is patterning of the fabric. The size of the Lee cloth is not extremely important as long as it does the job. For most bunks, we find using a 54-inch wide fabric and a height of about 25 inches is just about perfect. For our design, we wanted to add pockets for magazines and electronic equipment, so we will cut a width of fabric for that. We'll cut that at 11 inches. Since we are going to add pockets to our Lee cloth, we need to fashion and finish those first before we can start working on the Lee cloth panel itself. Why? Because we will sew these pockets along an edge of the panel when we sew on our facing tape. We cut this pocket strip to 11 inches wide, but the 54-inch length is too much, so we will cut it down to our desired size. We had some scrap fabric left over from making the Salon cushions. We will cut this to size for a pocket for electronics, and we will use a polyurethane foam with fabric backing to give it a soft protective covering with pleats. We have folded the decorative fabric over the sew foam, polyurethane foam with fabric backing, and will now take it to the Sailrite UltraFeed LS1 sewing machine to sew it together and create our pleats or channeling. We are sewing a straight stitch about 6 millimeters long and spacing the pleats about every inch or so, which is totally up for preference. Then trim off any excess fabric or foam hanging off the edges. Next, we will install a Sunbrella acrylic binding, 1 inch, that complements the color of the Lee cloth and the Salon cushion fabric. We will sew it first to the 2 small ends only. We have opted not to use the 1-inch swing-away straight-angle binder, but are showing you how binding can be installed by hand without a binder attachment. Just carefully guide the fabric assembly inside the fold of the binding as you sew. Sew a few inches at a time and reposition, then repeat. After both small sides have binding installed on them, fold the assembly to your desired depth or height, leaving a flap of fabric at the top, which will be used to sew or attach it to the larger pocket in a later step. Then, before sewing binding on the sides, pre-sew it along the sides to ensure that it stays folded correctly when the binding is sewn in the next step. Next, install binding, as done earlier, on the sides. Notice that when Angela starts sewing, she always holds the trailing threads for the first few stitches, then lets them go. This avoids them being pulled into the bobbin area and prevents possible rat's nests, ugly loops of thread on the bottom side of the fabric. This pocket is done. Next, we will sew a 2-inch Sunbrella facing tape to the larger pocket. We will sew this onto the 2 small ends first, just as we did with the smaller pocket. When that is done, fold the assembly to your desired height and position the smaller pocket in a pleasing position, and then unfold the assembly and sew it in place along all 4 sides. We will not show sewing every side of the small pocket. Then fold the assembly again and pre-sew one side as we did for the smaller pocket. Sew the side that will face towards the center of the Lee cloth. On that side, fold and sew a 2-inch Sunbrella facing over it. Now position the pocket on the Lee Cloth panel along the short side you desired it to fit on. Pre-sew it in place along that edge, being sure that you leave about 5 inches or more at the bottom, because we will use that to wrap around the cushion and fasten to the base of the settee. Scroll up the fabric from the opposite end and sew the opposite side of the larger pocket in place right on top of the stitch that secured the facing tape. Then sew the bottom edge. Now we will simply fold and sew a 2-inch umbrella facing on all of the 4 sides of the Lee Cloth panel. Notice that as Angela folds and sews, she sews several inches, buries her needle in the fabric, folds the facing, and continues to sew. Repeating this process, she does not lose her place when it comes time to fold and position the facing on the sides. Since the sides are a 90-degree turn, it is best to cut the excess facing off and fold new facing over the corner. Depending on the fabric choice for your Lee cloth, you can use other facings too. Some customers have used Dacron sail tape for side facing. Some have even used 2-inch webbing. Our preference is the Sunbrella 2-inch facing. It has finished edges that are folded under, and because one of those folds is positioned 1 inch inside towards the center, it creases easily along the center for the seamstress. The Lee Cloth panel is now done and needs grommets installed. We will install them along the top and bottom edges. It is easiest to fold the panel in half and mark the center with a pencil. Then fold it in quarters and mark it yet again. These positions are roughly 13 inches apart, and they will be where we will install a number 2 spur grommet. Using a number 2 hole cutter, a hole will be made in the facing at each one of the locations where we marked on the panel. A rubber cutting mat prevents damage to the hole cutter. Then a spur grommet die set will be used to install the number 2 nickel-plated spur grommet. We will be using polypropylene webbing 1 inch, since this Lee cloth will be used inside the boat's cabin and we don't have to worry about UV. We will cut it to the size using a hot knife. The length required is dependent on where you attach the webbing. We will be looping the webbing around this post on this end, and on the other end we will secure it via a fast eye snap hook and strap eye stainless steel. First, on one end of the length of webbing, we will run the webbing through the fast eye snap hook, then sew a Z-stitch to secure the hook in place. You could also sew a box X stitch, which is nothing more than a box with an X in the middle. We decided to use side release buckles, which can be used to tension the Lee cloth and provide quick opening for entry or exit. A few inches from the hook secure the female portion of the buckle. This strap we're making will be used to snap to the Lee cloth and also the strap eye via the 2 snap hooks. So we will run another fast eye snap hook down the length of webbing, and we will not sew it in place. Then thread the male portion of the side release buckle onto the end of the webbing. To finish the strap, fold the end over a 1/2 inch twice and sew a straight stitch down the middle, reversing a few times. This keeps the hardware from coming off the end easily. The second strap, which will be looped over the post on our boat, will be made in a similar fashion, except we will only sew a snap hook on one end of this webbing and make a loop for the other. Fold over the webbing at the end and sew down the middle again. How you secure your Lee cloth is totally dependent on how your boat is set up. The reason for all the grommets along the top is for the possibility of running webbing or rope through the top edge and securing to strap eyes or handrails along the top if your boat has them. It's time to install the Lee cloth. Flip the cushion up and secure the bottom edge to the base of the settee. We have installed grommets along the bottom edge, so we will use stainless steel washers and screws to secure the Lee cloth just inside the settee's fascia. If you were to use snaps instead of grommets, we recommend you place them at least 12 inches deep under the cushion, so the weight of the occupant on the fabric will add to the holding power of the snaps. That would mean the overall height of the Lee cloth would have to be about 12 inches more when patterning. We have secured our webbing straps that we made earlier and will loop this one over the post and then draw it up tight via the side release buckle. Here a stainless steel strap eye will be installed with screws. Our project is done. The pockets may come in useful for magazines, flashlights, or other gadgets. When you're tired and getting off watch, just unclip the side release buckles and climb in. Then when not in use, you can unclip via the snap hooks and stow under the Salon cushion. The materials list is coming up next. Pick from many fabrics from Sailrite that will work great for Lee cloths, like Fifertex, Sunbrella, polyester bag mesh, trampoline mesh soft white, and Picasso cotton duck. If you have any comments or suggestions about this video, write to us under the comments section on the YouTube channel for this video. If you have questions about our products, email us or call us at Sailrite. We're more than happy to assist you in your next DIY project. For more free videos like this, be sure to check out the Sailrite website or subscribe to the Sailrite YouTube channel. It's your loyal patronage to Sailrite that makes these free videos available. Thanks for your loyal support. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.